I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite
podcast
on the Citadel.
You are listening to Accidentally Casual. It's nerds and games and a podcast. My name is Minius GC. I'm Minius from Minius GC. With me is Tucker from Talking About Games. I've been doing this for too long. Hey, Tucker.
Hi. I have tea, and I'm excited with it.
I have tea. How much caffeine is in that tea?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I went to Pike's Market in Seattle it's a place called Allspice, and you can get tea stuff. You can also get spices for chicken or meat or things like that. And I just went in there and said, what's something for anxiety or something like that? And they're like, here you go. This would be a good one.
You took anxiety tea for a podcast?
I mean, sure.
Do I make you anxious? Do I yell at you too much? We've been over this off the show.
Being alive gives me anxiety.
Yeah, theoretically, if you weren't alive, you wouldn't have any anxiety. So,
my entire life is just anxiety. And also, not just that, but the tea is in a Last of Us coffee mug, and one of those is relevant to the top 5 list.
Ooh. Tucker is a game designer, and I'm a dude with a big voice who plays a lot of games, and together we podcast. If you have a question or topic suggestion, you can send it over to accidentallycasual@gmail.com, which is alive and being used. Or you can go for the comment section, or hit us up on Twitter. I'm at MiniusGC, and Tucker is at AppyTucker. We like the show today, right?
Yeah. What?
We like this show in particular.
Dude, I've been excited for this. A
week and a half.
Yeah, no, we were talking about ideas, and we did whatever we did last week. I don't even remember. And
fucking A, Tucker. God damn it.
I wasn't even paying attention much with that because I was excited for this one. I was just well, I mean, I still did all the thing, but
So this is going to be kind of a year in gaming review show.
Yes.
This podcast should come out on December 31st. If we're all lucky, that's it for 2020. That's it.
It feels like. It doesn't even feel like the new year is coming in. Just with everything that's been going on, it doesn't even feel like
what's going to happen
is turning over.
Is an asteroid is going to hit the fucking Earth with 30 seconds to go to the new year.
Lol.
And we're just going to say, and you know what usually the reaction would be panic or something. If that happened, they're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that was going to happen. All right, fuck. I'll just wait for this fucking tsunami to come. Anyway, that's cheerful, right?
Well, I mean, we did. I mean, we even had things like murder hornets and stuff like that. But that shit was just a filler episode. That was only here for
nothing by comparison.
Yeah, but if there were killer wasps or whatnot another year, that would have been. I mean, you remember a few years ago when the biggest scare was the fact that there were killer clowns. There were people dressing up as clowns standing on the side of roads, and that was the biggest thing of the year. Can we go back to that?
I don't remember that at all.
That was 2017. Can we go back to that?
That was the biggest thing in 2017?
I mean, with...
There's no way.
In regards of that, there was a lot of other things.
Doesn't even sound real.
But, that just sound... that was the whole thing.
Either way, the one thing that we did get out of 2020 is a lot of people played a lot of games.
Yes.
That was one thing you could do.
You were stuck inside.
And so, God bless the video game world, all of us. We are going to go over our top 5 games of the year in reverse order. Tucker, I believe, is going to cheat.
Yes.
But this is the first time. So Tucker never follows what I do. I try to put together.
It works. It'll work. There's reasoning with them.
We'll see. And I was this time, but normally, I come up with a subject and I know Tucker's not going to follow it, but he pretends like he might. This time he's yeah, I'm not going to follow it at all. So these are top.
It'll be fine. It'll be good.
But what games? What is the qualification for these games being on your list? You played them in 2020, or you discovered them in 2020?
Well, I discovered or played them in 2020. Like they were
Okay.
games that are. I mean, yeah.
I decided not to cheat at all, even though 2 games that would be the best games I played this year did not come out in 2020, and they're not on my list because I'm not a cheater.
Oh,
you
well,
little cheater.
do you have any honorable mentions before we get into the top 5?
I do, but I want to yell at you for being a cheater for a while. I also asked the community, and none of them cheated either. There's one guy who said,
fair.
like, I feel like this is cheating, and I'm sorry. And I said, don't worry about it. You're competing with Tucker. And he didn't understand what I was talking about. Because you are on your own orbit as far as being nuts.
Well, I mean, it works. It's fine. Like, it balances itself out. There's reasoning with them. Like, only one of them is, kind of
okay.
different.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how much. I usually admonish you for dumb shit anyway. So if it's actually heinous, it'll get loud. So honorable mentions that we need to go with, these that do not make the top 5?
Yeah, well, just ones that, like, you may have enjoyed or were contemplating to put on that list, but it just didn't break it.
Yeah, I'd say Immortals Phoenix Rising. I really enjoyed that game. It's also got some spots, like its humor is just awful. But it's a fun game. It's an interesting version of the Ubisoft open world. At the very least, it's less about combat and more about puzzles, and the puzzles aren't hard. And more about platforming, and the platforming can be hard. It's an interesting game. Also, I should mention, I guess one of the games on that list, and this is just from a standpoint of me not being a huge first-person shooter guy, Doom Eternal, I thought was
I've heard a lot of people enjoy that game.
And in fact, we will go over everybody else's choices after we do our thing, and that's very high up there. If I was more of a first-person shooter guy, I think that would be higher on my list as far as...
I have that game on my list to play. I just, haven't played it.
Yeah, I mean, it's I generally like more story to what I got. But
it is a power trip game. It is a game that is meant, like, you are meant to feel like a god.
I remember
an unstoppable thing.
I remember buying it, and I'm like, oh, I'm kind of curious to see where they go with the story. And they just ignored it, and that's kind of what they did. I mean, that's his thing, and I'm like, okay. And I finally went back and played it to try to get ready for that.
I mean, that is kind of funny. Like, I think the Doom in 2016 or whenever that one came out, I think it opens up with someone trying to give exposition, and Doom guy breaks the computer or something like that.
That might happen. I just remember you just sitting there on a table, and dudes come at you, and that's how it just goes.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's
the other one
Doom is.
We'll talk more about Doom in a little bit because a lot of people like that, and it's something. My other one would be Star Renegades, which is I've talked about on the show Restart a couple times. Turn-based strategy game, high stakes, somewhat roguelike. Really enjoyed the music, really enjoyed the atmosphere and the combat. Reminded me a bit of Mass Effect in some of those ways, but different enough that it's not a good comparison. So what are your honorable mentions? And
I only have 2.
I'm slightly afraid to let you go. You're going to start talking about these games, and I'm going to get frustrated.
Oh, yeah, I hope you're ready
ahead.
that this is going to be one of the longest podcasts, probably, because
we'll see.
have 5 games to go through.
Well, I'm not gonna let you just go on forever because we tried that on a show and it did not work.
Well, I know. Well, but this is like a top 5 thing of it.
I understand that, but if it's got to be entertaining, Tucker. It can't just be you talking about. It can't be just you talking about the dumbest shit ever.
I can still make that entertaining.
You don't realize it, but no, you can't. Go ahead though.
Oof.
Honorable mentions.
So my first honorable mention is Star Wars Squadrons.
Actual 2020 game. Whoa.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, there'll be a few of those. I really like the small idea of it. Like, apparently it was Star Wars Squadrons was an idea that was cut from Battlefront 2. That's how the original space battles were going to be. but they cut it and then they decided to make a full game focused on it because the Star Wars community has wanted a like TIE wing or X-wing TIE fighter kind of dogfight game. And it's enjoyable. And I really like the diegetic menu. I absolutely love the idea that the menu system is the actual cockpit that you're in. And it's
That's
Star
what you
Wars,
mean
which
by
I'm a
that.
sucker for.
Just assume people don't know what the hell you're talking about when you use big words.
Yeah. And but
you're
it's
not?
in the it's in, well, I've explained what diegetic menus are.
Assume someone's listening for the first time, Tucker. We went over this before.
A diegetic menu is a menu that is within the game world. So inside the cockpit of Star Wars Squadrons, it will show like the speed of your fighter rather than it being a HUD overlay like in Need for Speed or Forza or any of those games.
All right.
So it's like that.
I would have played that game if it wasn't first person. I think that's
it's a forced first person, and it's in VR too, which is
that
awesome.
Would be something I'm interested in. Don't currently have the setup for that. I'll get into that later.
But that is an honorable mention because like it's too big of a game, so I didn't want to put that in my top 5. And the other honorable mention
wait,
is wait,
back up. It's too big of a game?
Yeah, it's Star Wars, it's EA, it's too big of a game.
What's wrong with having a big game?
And that wasn't my focus for this year.
That's ridiculous, but okay.
And the other honorable mention is the Lego Harry Potter collection, which is a remaster of all the Lego Harry Potter games put into one. I am just a sucker for Harry Potter. I've been re-listening to all the audiobooks. I've been just playing through those games. I just fucking love Harry Potter. But I didn't want to put that on because it is a remaster, so I didn't want to count that.
Not only is it a remaster, but didn't it come out like 4 years ago?
No, the remaster. Well, it came out on Xbox this year, I think.
That'll be an interesting way. I guess that counts. I guess.
Oh,
either way,
it counts because that counts for my first one of the top 5. So
all right, I was getting frustrated with you last time on the show for talking about Harry Potter because I didn't believe anyone else. You got backed up in the comments section.
No, because of Lego, not Harry Potter. It was Lego.
Still, Lego stuff. You don't get backed up in the comment section very often, but you did this time.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, the Lego games are just wholesome, fun games.
Yeah.
And the Lego games have also been around for a very long time. Some of the listeners probably have played Lego Racer or Lego Island when they were very basic games, but Lego games have been around for a while.
Allow me to admonish myself. I'm not a huge fan of the Lego. I'm not as into the Lego games because they're too simple. But I really like simple games, so that's a ridiculous reason.
What do you mean simple?
It's simple combat, simple movement, simple stuff, which is fine, and I enjoy games like that. It's really the Lego art style. I mean, I've never been into Legos, and that's a personal taste.
It looks childish, which I can see being an automatic turnoff for some people. Is that it looks like it is meant for kids, but
normally doesn't
Legos.
bother me, and one of my games on here fits into that. But it's the look of the Lego characters. People love that, and I'm like, these guys look weird. But then again, if you played with Legos as a kid, I could see that being fantastic. So I will no longer stop you from talking about Lego games. Congratulations.
Aha. Well, I mean, you probably will. But, so, top 5.
Who goes first?
You can go.
You want me to go first? All right.
Sure.
So number 5 of my top 5 games of 2020, and I didn't cheat. These games all came out in 2020. I'm putting Fall Guys as my top 5 game there. Part of what I want to do this way is we're going to say a game, and you may not have played it, and then we'll talk about the game. You're like, I kind of want to play that. Fall Guys is a game. I expected. Fall Guys is a game that's time has come.
What do you mean?
You cannot jump into Fall Guys right now and have a good time. It's a game that looks absurd. I mean, you're generally these wobbly-looking bean people, and it's a battle royale show competition, which jumped in, was the most popular game in gaming for a month, I think. And I got way into it.
And then Among Us beat it. out or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, games come and go, and this is
Yeah.
more of a thing. The skill level required for Fall Guys isn't just deceptively high; it's very, very high. You have to be good at that game to win it. So you have to memorize the courses. You have to be able to improvise. You need some improvisation skills with your controller, and some skill and some movement skill, and all of that adds up to a whole bunch of fun. I had the most fun though playing with friends and teaming up on people because it's supposed to be an individual thing, and having two people fuck with you in Fall Guys is just fantastic.
Yeah, that's where the game fell through with me. Is I don't have friends.
Okay. Well, that's too bad because you could have played with us. We could have both dressed up like horses and grabbed someone in the ass all game long, and it would have been great. But that was a really fun experience.
Revolver Digital.
That is the publisher. The specific
Because Devolver makes some wild.
Yeah,
things.
Devolver is. That's a publisher, and they publish all kinds of wild indie games. But they weren't just the publisher. I believe they were more directly involved. The guys that did Fall Guys did Gang Beasts, which is a very similar game, and that one is just flat out absurd. They look almost identical, right? I mean, but they're not quite. The physics aren't as nuts, although it is very floppy. By the way, the Fall Guys, according to lore, they're 6 feet tall. They're 6 feet tall bean people.
Nice.
Anyway, I thought that was a phenomenal game.
Yeah.
But
have they added new maps and stuff to that? Because I know that was part of the issue.
They've added a few new maps. They're in season 3 now, but they're not adding maps at probably a fast enough rate. And once again, like if you're like, oh, I want to try that game out, you'll go in there and you'll get crushed. It's not a game that's easy enough to pick up. So if you're into it and you got into it, I'm sure you had a lot of fun with it. It's not something I recommend jumping into now. The learning curve is going to be too high. It's a very difficult game to win, and so it's incredibly satisfying when you win. But then again, you need to build up a skill level. Anyway, Fall Guys number 5.
My number 5 is one that anyone can jump in at any time, and it is Tetris Effect.
All right.
Tetris Effect came out on the Xbox in 2020 in the holiday, and this year has absolutely just gone tits up. The pandemic completely just messed up a lot of things. Like personally, the pandemic made me lose my job that I was about to start at Big Fish. I was about to do a contract with them, and pandemic put that on hold. My dad had a sudden heart attack, and he passed away this year. And then on top of all this other stuff that is going on, just the daily shit that's been going on this year. So Tetris
Your neighborhood's
Effect,
got some stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always feel bad being mean to you afterwards.
Why?
I don't. Well, you just get listed some good reasons. Anyway, continue.
This year sucked. But so Tetris Effect is a game that I downloaded, I played, and I just kind of lost track of time. It is Tetris, so everyone knows how Tetris plays, but this is like a laser light show, how the visual effects for each level is different, but or it has like a theme. Like there's some that are underwater, some that are in space, all these different types of themes behind levels, but they all are different, and each has an individual song that matches the as you clear lines, as you spin pieces around, as you do these things, the animation plays through as you get closer to beating the level, and the music matches with it. It's really a spectacle as you play. It's an experience that you're playing, and something like that. Kind of reminds me of some of the things of gaming, of what it is, of just how it's meant to be something you relax, you enjoy, something that just kind of takes you out of the moment and lets you just have some fun. And it's Tetris. Everyone's played that. So
I believe if we were having a real game of the year, that would not qualify as a 2020 game because it's come out worldwide before, but you're going to do whatever you want anyway.
Came out on Xbox on 2020.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes games come out far late. Like, for instance, the original Mass Effect came out on PlayStation like 5 years later, and I wouldn't have counted that. So, but either way, you're going to do what you're going to do anyway. So we'll just let this one go. That's
and I also made a video
to the other ones.
On Tetris Effect that I had just put out on my channel that I'm actually really happy with. I am really happy with how that video came out and such.
Check the description box for that video.
Yeah. So that is my top 5 is Tetris Effect.
That's number 5.
Yeah.
Do we want a big voice? Number 5.
I don't know.
Should we go number 4?
I was going to say, we're on number 4 now.
Yeah. Well, I didn't do the number 5 one, and it's important to get the voice in. Right? It's not at all important. Anyway, my number 4 is a weird one, kind of, but I've seen it actually on a lot of other people's top games of the year. It's Astro's Playroom, which I know a lot of people didn't have the opportunity to play because it is a game that is only preloaded on your PS5. And it's really a tech demo designed for the new PlayStation 5 controller.
I've heard of that.
And it is so much fun. It's one of the few games you're like, man, I wish this game was longer. It's not short, but it's definitely not anywhere near like a AAA game. It's free, kind of, because you have to buy a PlayStation 5 for it, but it comes preloaded on the thing, and it gives you the most amazing sensory feedback going through there. I mean, it really does, like, your mind fills in the blanks. It really does feel like you're walking through a field or walking on ice, because your hand gets the haptic feedback from the DualSense controller and going back there. And it's something where you look at that and you're like, wow, I really, really, really am looking forward to seeing what other developers do with this. It was a fantastic example of where games can go in a way that's not, like wacky motion controls, although they had that. There's some weird, funky motion controls things that don't work that well. But and every time I talk about a PS5 game with haptic feedback, I pick up my PS5 controller. I'm holding it in my hands right now.
It's the only game that has haptic feedback right now, right?
That is false. A lot of them do, but nothing comes close to the detail of that game.
Okay,
nothing comes close. And I think, and this is kind of PlayStation did this like with the PS4, they had the touchpad, right? And nobody used the touchpad except for the own PS4 developers. Because, Xbox doesn't have a touchpad, and PC gamepads don't have touchpads. And this might be a thing, although I can't imagine Microsoft won't add a haptic feedback controller because it's just too cool of a step up. Up.
Yeah, it's definitely the next evolution of the controller. For the new Xbox controller, it's the same thing for the most part.
Basically, everyone loves that controller, and it also keeps the cost down. But it's something that
the Xbox controller is a solid design. I mean,
yeah,
it fits nicely.
I assume though you can have the exact same shape and the exact same button resistance, except for the adaptive triggers, and add all that stuff, and that's what you could do there. But anyway, just for that alone, it was so well executed. Astro's Playroom also has a crazy amount of PlayStation nostalgia in there. Even
but you feel like that one beats your the number 5 Fall Guys?
Yep, for me. I mean, that's something like I recommend every single person listening to this to play that game. And Fall Guys is not on that list. So that's what dropped Fall Guys down. Like at some point you will have to play it, and the way you might have to play it is 3 years from now when you can go into a store, going to a demo booth and playing it. Just get your hands on it at some point. No, because the whole point is the haptic feedback, and if you don't get that hooked up, I mean, I guess an emulator could technically do it.
I mean, you can hook up a PlayStation 5 controller to PC.
But it's got to have the full hook. I don't know enough about how to make that work. I am looking forward to mods adding haptic feedback to other PC games. There's no way it doesn't happen. It's not that complicated. A lot of people are starting to get into it as far as designing and stuff. And that is a starting point. It was my favorite launch game, from a direct launch basic.
But again,
thing.
The new consoles launched with no real new games.
Yeah, there's another one in here that was technically a launch game, but that I like that one so much. It was like I was thinking it's along the lines of Mario 64, not anywhere near as good, but that's kind of the game that came to mind as far as this being something new.
Right.
Look at me talking long.
It's good. It's good.
It's good.
Not rambling.
It's good.
Fun.
Number 4, Tucker.
Yeah, so my number 4 is Control.
That's definitely not a 2020 game, but that's fine.
It came out on the tail end of 2019, so...
It's a 2019 game.
So, yeah, But I really absolutely love the design for the gun in Control. How the gun is the same gun that you use in the game, and then it just changes itself to be a machine gun, shotgun, sniper, something like that. As well as the progression of your abilities. It was a game where you started very weak and then you got your abilities as you play through, but the game gives you enough time at the end of the game to actually enjoy all of your abilities and feel like, like an absolute badass god. Instead of only doing that right at the very tail end of the level, you actually have a few levels with all those abilities.
I appreciate games that do that.
Yeah,
like you don't get something brand new at the end.
And I'm not too big on the whole SCP fandom or that whole community and stuff like that, but I did enjoy the aspect that Control kind of had of those mysterious objects, and I also got a big like a Norse vibe of how that building is like the tree of Yggdrasil, how it moves and changes. I felt like Ati, the janitor guy, may have been like
I forgot about him. Okay, that's where you're getting that from. I did not make that connection at all in my head when I was playing it, but
I mean, I think he's like Ratatasker, Ratatasker is the one who can navigate the tree. He's the one that can go, but he's the messenger god, so he's the one that can travel throughout the tree, and that kind of fits Ati, as well as kind of that joking humor that he has, as well as that during that final thing that happens, a song plays, and it's like a song called The Old Gods, or something like that. It's like a Norse song. So it's like, I just got little vibes of that, and I don't know if there's actually anything on that, or if I'm just a mad lad. I don't know.
Well, I know
I like
Remedy,
that.
who put him out, is a Finnish studio, which is in Scandinavia.
Yeah.
Different. Well, I don't know enough about the difference. I know it's different language, different theoretically ethnic group, but it's up there.
I've
loved their games.
If I
in the
have
past.
the idea of Ratatasker, I'm immediately a big fan because
is that right?
I saw him. I was introduced to him in Smite, and how it's like Smite is a game where you're playing as all these types of gods and everything like that, and one of them is a squirrel, and that is awesome. And it also helps that he absolutely kicks ass. If you gank as Ratatasker, you can demolish people. And he's a squirrel. The entire time he is a squirrel. And so I read about his lore and looked at mythology and stuff with him, and I just absolutely love him. He's a little shit, and I take full inspiration from that.
Every time I think of Remedy, I always think of playing Max Payne for the first time. And a lot of people went for the slow-mo and diving mechanics. I just love the atmosphere that game brung, and Remedy still brings that atmosphere in all their games. So
they did the first two. Rockstar did the third one, right?
Yes, but the first two are my favorite ones. The first one, in particular.
I think there's another game that also did that dive slow motion.
That became very, very popular after that. Yeah.
There's another one. It was like something in Japan. But,
That was a while ago, by the way.
Yeah.
No, really. Like, according to this, and I remember that Max Payne came out in 2001, which is theoretically 20 years ago at this point.
And it also had an absolutely god-awful level thing where you were following the dreams, or you're following the blood.
Oh, you didn't like those?
No one did.
I love those, man. There you go. Take it. They were difficult, but that didn't bother me the slightest. I imagine going back to them now would piss me off like crazy.
It does not hold up.
I guarantee it does not hold up. Yeah, I believe that 100%. I played it as it came out, though, so. All right, Minius number 3. This kind of backtracks on what I'm saying, but as far as recommending that you play this one, it's up there, and it needs more recognition, so I put it up higher, is Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Okay.
Which, in essence, it's a semi-spin-off game. It's not something new. It's half the size of Spider-Man PS4, but it's got a lot of hearts.
It's like
and a lot of
Undead
good
Nightmare
controls.
in Red Dead and
yes
so on.
and no. It's directly connected to the story. Same
But
characters.
it's a standalone game.
Yes, kind of. It's like a half sequel, half spin-off. And it's something that is something I'd like to see more in games where you already have this map. It's kind of almost like an expansion, but it's a whole nother game with a whole nother story, different character added in there, a lot of the similar mechanics. Handles real well, a lot of fun characters. Very, very, very solid overall experience. And it is enhanced greatly by the haptic feedback and resistance on the controllers.
That game has haptic feedback.
Yes. Again, that's another PlayStation exclusive studio. I mean, that's where they get that from. And
Have you unlocked the kitty backpack? Or whatever that is?
Yes.
That's good.
With
That's good.
Spider-Man the cat.
That's key.
Is it key? Yeah, no, I got platinum that game.
Okay.
Another just really enjoyed it. Recommend that to anyone who can eventually get their hands on a PS5. I'm sure some people played it on the PS4 and didn't wait, but I believe the PS5 is worth doing it.
Now that the holiday season is done, I wonder if like the demand for newer consoles may have dipped a bit because while
that is a good question.
Because obviously the gaming communities, people still want to get the new consoles, but there's also the whole thing of parents buying the new consoles for their kids and so on like that.
Eventually, these hardware droughts will dry up. I'm hoping. So everyone will be able to get something if they want to get something.
Yeah.
And you can get that digital
I'm not buying
console
from a
reasonable.
scalper.
No, do not do that. Do not do that.
In fact, not supporting scalpers.
We talked about this on the first show, the Restart. These new consoles are fun. You do not need one right now, really. Yeah. There's not very many specific games. And like Astro's Playroom is the one that's specifically for the PS5. But as far as big AAA games
like Miles
that are coming
Morales
out, only designed that. Yeah, Miles Morales is on the PS4. Even the new Sony games like Horizon Forbidden West is going to be on the PS4. So you're not going to miss out really on stuff. Yeah. It was great because Microsoft got a whole lot of shit for saying their stuff was going to be on the last console, and Sony just shut up and then did the exact same thing and got no shit at all, which was hilarious.
I was going to say like,
which was hilarious. And you're like, come on, man! You basically made it look like you're like we're all about the new generation stuff, and then they went completely back on that. So whatever. Like I said, businesses are busines's. But you don't need one right away, but wait till you
I wonder how that's going to play out. We're seeing how Cyberpunk, their push to make it work on prior gen.
I mean, the difference is that was going to be a prior gen game anyway.
Yeah, it was announced 8 years. And it also helps that the Horizon is a PlayStation exclusive, so it only has to work with the PlayStation engine. Like the engines that
that'll make it easier on them. They've also, at some point this will back up, but Sony puts a lot of effort into making really polished games at the start, and I believe Microsoft will join that. Nintendo does that. You're getting your best single player full experiences from those first party studios that are trying to move hardware, because the point of the game is not to sell the game. Is to move hardware and get you into the ecosystem. So that's always a good bet at this point in game. Might change, but at this point, it's always a good bet. Chucker, number 3.
So my number 3 is Coffee Talk, which this one did come out in 2020. It was January.
This one might actually end up being your game of the year then.
It's number 3 of my game of the year.
But you're going to cheat, so.
Is Coffee Talk. Which is, it takes place in Seattle.
I remember hearing to that game.
It takes place in Seattle, which did make me more interested in it, but it is a visual novel. And I'm typically not keen on those, with the exception of Doki Doki Literature Club, because that one was just insane. But it's a visual novel game where you own a coffee shop out here in Seattle, Seattle is the #1 coffee spot in America. And it's a fantasy type of world where these characters come in and their story builds throughout time as as the days are going by. But the game itself feels like that world exists. Like, the world building for it is, you get newspapers every morning that explains what's going on in the world. That some of the characters, there's like two characters, an elf and a succubus or something like that they can't be together because their families don't like each other. And you have one person in there who's your friend, who's a writer, who's writing about all the stuff. There's a developer who's an orc. And all these stories play through, and intermittently you make coffee for them. And the game starts off simple, where they just want a simple espresso or something like that, and they'll tell you directly. But then later on, they may say that, oh, I want something warm and chocolatey, or I want some tea that's nice and calming, or something like that, as you get more ingredients to mix different drinks together. And
that game sounds very, very Seattle.
You can mess up the order and the story will continue, but there is like a friendship meter that you build if you give them the correct order. And that unlocks more story as it goes on. But it's a really just great game. The music is fantastic in it. I have that soundtrack playing when I'm at work because can't really have my normal music playing. And we try to play music that is kind of a bit calming with the dog because they're puppies that are running around. So we want to match kind of that behavior a bit. But the music is nice, soothing, just kind of good background music that I could just throw on at work.
Apparently that game's out of Indonesia. There's
Cool.
some titles coming out now with new Indonesian developers. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do.
But it's on Xbox Game Pass.
The more countries that get involved in making games, the better.
But Coffee Talk does have a endless mode where people just come in and you make them coffee and whatnot, and that isn't that good. The gameplay itself doesn't hold up on a standalone, but it being the intermittent interactive element between the story being told, it fits perfectly, and it's great. Very enjoyable.
All right.
Which is why I had my tea that I was talking about.
Is that related? Is that
yes.
You're like, I'm going to talk about this game, and so I'm going to get tea?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
Yeah. And I'm just trying to drink healthier, too. Instead of soda and stuff, now I have tea.
Yeah.
Dude, I've been making
smoothies
and stuff in the morning.
Okay.
And that shit's be slapping.
All right.
I had one that was like, this morning it was blueberries and banana and like some honey, and yogurt, and stuff like that.
You were doing so good on staying on topic, and now we're going.
Since when?
I guess that's kind of related.
Fair. But yeah. And I mean, I am absolutely also impartial to the game because it takes place in Seattle, and I'm like, well, I live there. So.
All right, we going? Minius number 2. My number 2 game, and you don't see this on many lists, is Streets of Rage 4. Because it was the coolest nostalgia trip going from a Streets of Rage fan. And unfortunately, it came out this year. No, it's a brand new game. It's a sequel.
Okay.
It's not a remake. They went back and painstakingly recreated a lot of the movement and stuff. And as far as Streets of Rage games, they nailed it, really. It'll be great to come back once this pandemic ends and you can have people over and doing some couch co-op. Because the online
it's a 2D brawler.
It's a 2D brawler, yeah. It's exactly like the previous games. And the villains are a lot weaker, but the music is still fucking awesome. And the gameplay is awesome. and it was just really cool to drop back in there. And they had a bunch of guest artists on, and there was a. Go ahead.
Does that game have online play?
It does.
It definitely
doesn't.
looks like a co-op one.
It doesn't work quite as well. This is a really
work.
small studio. There's enough lag that it kind of ruins the experience.
Ooh.
So that in that standpoint, that really hurt it. But Streets of Rage was always a co-op thing, and I think eventually, if you put enough money into it, you can get something like that to work. But it is fun just going in there alone, and I think that's more of a couch co-op type game.
Have you heard that the Scott Pilgrim game is coming back?
Dude, you know what I discovered? I have that game
What?
still loaded on my PS3.
I still got it on my 360. I just haven't played it.
I found that out a couple days ago, and I fired up my PS3. I'm like, what games do I have in here? I'm like, oh my god,
That's awesome.
I have Scott Pilgrim on there still. Yeah, I really like that genre of game. I hope it becomes popular again. But it's something that really adds, physical beat 'em up, especially adding the music. Even Scott Pilgrim is known for music. Streets of Rage series known for its music. Very, very
the Scott
solid.
Pilgrim movie it might be one of my favorite movies.
It's a very good nerd movie. Have
It
you
is
read
a perfect nerd movie.
Have you
It's
read the
made by
comics?
Part of it. I
Okay.
looked at parts of it when I at school in Florida. There was a comic book shop across the street from my school, and I would check that out a lot.
That is something to probably put on your list. I believe they're in color now. So
Ooh, fancy.
So they were just black and white before. Very obsessed with that for a period of time.
How'd they do Ramona if it was black and white with her hair and all this stuff? Or was that
on
not
the
a
cover?
thing?
She would have a different hair color. I could go dig up my books and look at it, but the cover was color, and the rest of it was just black and white. But it didn't damage it at all. You could use your imagination.
Yeah, okay,
Your
fair.
imagination. Tucker number 2.
So number 2 is a game that I know that you know, and it is Spellbreak. Is my number 2 game.
Okay. Did come out this year
because-
too.
Yeah. I don't know when it came out. But Spellbreak is definitely not like the best made game or anything like that, but the idea behind it just excites me. I enjoy the battle royale games. Like I've enjoyed Modern Warfare's Warzone and stuff like that. But with Spellbreak, it's with different elements being the creative use for weapons, like instead of a machine gun or sniper or things like that, you have lightning or ice, and you have rock and fire and all this different types of elements, and you can combine them and work with your team to like have a tornado spawn and someone fire into it and turn into a fire tornado and do all this different shit with it, and it's enjoyable. It's a fun kind of game where it's absolutely, there's a lot of potential in it. I feel
That's
like they
how I
have the
looked at it,
groundwork
yeah.
for something that can be really well done. But there is something that I'm sad with that game, and it is the lack of involvement that the map has with the elements. If they sectioned off part of the map where like the top part of the map may be like the ice glacier area, or the left part of the map's a desert, and if you have the ice ability as your selected one and you're in the ice area, you can combine that to reach areas to get like higher ranked chests or stuff, that things that just aren't instant wins, but things that increase the chances of getting something better, and find some sort of balance point where it's not game breaking, but it does then start to build the habitat of the people who are stone shapers. Like, this is their habitat, is the left side of the map, and I'm over here with the right side with the volcanoes because I picked fire, and I want to use my abilities here and to get it. And as the circle shrinks, then you start getting the people clustering in with each other. I feel like that would just help with it.
It could. I really wanted that to not be a multiplayer game and be a single-player game and expand on the combat. I was looking at that like, wow, that'd be fantastic. They're kind of doing some different stuff with that, and the the word you use, potential, that's something like there's a lot of potential in that style of game.
Yeah, like I feel like if they took that world and made like an anime or something like that, it would fit so perfectly. It's almost like Avatar in the sense of people using their abilities around like that, but it's just really enjoyable. And as a game, again, I went in with zero expectations and I significantly enjoyed it.
Experiencing that at a slower pace where you can explore a map and you have to get the right gauntlet to access certain areas, that seems like a better use of that kind of gameplay than what they did. And I understand why they did it. It's a very, very, very small team, I think.
Yeah, and there's other issues with it too. Like right now the player base is kind of small, which is an issue in of itself. And ideas that like the map was massive, but there would be only 42 people in a game. And
yeah, you can go a long time without finding anyone.
Yeah. So there were definitely some issues there, but the game itself, the design behind it, the mechanics, just the way everything is set up, I really, really enjoy.
I think if the controls were a lot tighter, I would have played that more. But
although I
the
really like the flying in that game. I enjoy flying
great.
more in that game than Anthem.
All right, you got to bring Anthem into this. Come on, 2020 is almost over. Don't bring us down. We're coming out.
Don't bring us down. Cyberpunk brought us down in 2020.
Cyberpunk was in worse shape for me than Anthem.
Although
was.
Cyberpunk did get me to watch the John Wick movies. I never saw those.
Oh, really?
And so, yeah, I watched them, I think, in the perfect manner. I went in blind for the most part.
Yeah,
I know Keanu was
in
in it, but I've never really seen much of it. I understood some of the jokes, but I've never seen much of it. And I watched all 3 of the movies back to back. And I feel like that's the best way to do it, because the whole thing is supposed to take place in the span of like a week, I think.
Yeah, it's not very long.
So, and with the movies coming out like a few years with each other, like it just worked out great. And then I was excited, and then Cyberpunk came out like 2 days after my binge watch, and I was let down.
Also, support you got in the comment section. A lot of people haven't watched The Godfather.
It's what? You cut out.
A lot of people haven't watched The Godfather, which you haven't got it. And I wasn't really mad at you for not watching The Godfather. I was mad at you for not watching The Godfather and then getting mad at me for not watching other movies.
Well, The Godfather has age. It is an older movie.
No, it's timeless. But that's fine if it's not your thing.
Oh, and the movie that you were talking about was Bandersnatch, which I think is is more relevant of a recommendation because it is like a video game movie and it's also a choice-based one.
Whatever.
But the creators of Black Mirror, the people that made Bandersnatch, just put something out on Netflix. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's called Death to 2020.
Oh, I just saw that recently, yeah.
It's something like that. I kind of want to see what that is.
I'd rather watch that than the other one, but don't compare your weird movie to Godfather.
Bandersnatch was
beloved
by the internet.
It looks so bad. That look is just bad on you. Okay. I assume you're done talking about Spellbreak?
Yeah, Spellbreak was my number 2. There.
Number 1, Minius. My number 1 game, and this is... I consider this kind of a down year for gaming, and it makes sense because people who wanted to put out games couldn't work together in the same area. So you got fewer ones. But it's Ghost of Tsushima, which I was expecting to enjoy, and it just kept on giving and giving and giving. It is the most beautiful game on the last generation consoles, and I have no idea how they made a game look that good, especially being that the hard drive space it takes up. I think, I mean, obviously it looks better than Cyberpunk of the last generation stuff. It's just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful game and a beautiful setting. It's set in a real life island in a historical setting, but then they changed the way the island looked to represent all of Japan. What put it over the top as far as becoming a game of the year for me was they added a multiplayer element without telling anyone about it ahead of time, and it came out later.
What do
and
you
it
mean?
was,
Like, is it like
it was
co-op,
like
or is it
they did? It was
competitive?
co-op. They didn't advertise it. It just came out, and it was ridiculously solid. A lot of the elements in there are something I want to see in the next Mass Effect game, because it had the wave-based survival co-op type thing, but then it had story mission things where you needed two people to do stuff, and it had co-op platforming elements, and the difficulty ramped up, and then it had a raid style thing, kind of like you got in Destiny, but four player, and way longer, and it was all free. It wasn't advertised, and there were 0 microtransactions to it. And you don't get that kind of shit ever now. And if I was Tucker, I'd say Sony was doing that just to be awesome. That's not what they were doing. But they were doing that to drive people towards the play. And that's why I continue to buy PlayStations, is games like that. And don't like that.
Okay.
And of course, they'll give back to you for buying the studio, and you get the game kind of not out of nowhere, because I followed Sucker Punch for years, and the Infamous series is one of my favorite game series of all time. But it's a very, very cool new setting, and I'm really, really looking forward to what they do with that multiplayer co-op thing, adding it on to their terrific narrative first-person games. It's a launching point at the same time as being the most beautiful game of last generation, and it's just flat out gorgeous. It's a game that you can walk and then you just stop and you start staring around. I went and I made sure to upgrade my monitor for that game specifically. I went out and bought another monitor in the middle of playing that game.
Ooh, that's spicy.
So that would be my game of the year. On a normal year, I don't think that would win, but it did this year.
Really? You don't? Because I mean, that overall, I think, was just a good game from what I've heard.
It was a very good game. It wasn't an amazing game. It's got some issues. The AI in it is not good at all.
Were there any games that were supposed to come out this year that you think would have beaten it? Because
so that is the other thing. So not only is there a pandemic, but you have a generational switch, and those are usually down years. I remember what the last generation switch was. It 2014, and those games that year were a little bit weaker.
2013. You mean from like PS3 to PS4 and Xbox 360 to Xbox One? I think that was 2013.
It's where people wait to release the bigger, better games.
Yeah, it's
till everyone's got the new
2013.
consoles. Okay.
No, it was.
I thought it was 2014.
Yeah, well, it was in America, in Europe, Australia, South America, North America in 2013, Japan, China, and other European countries in 2014.
That's weird, but okay. It's. I would call it a down year in games. It's something that you're like, I don't think that would win, but I really, really enjoyed it, and that second part of it is what pushed it over the top for me. But the single player is worth getting at some point, and if you do play it on PS5, the frame rate jumps right up and looks pretty. But it's worth playing on PS4 right now, and definitely worth dipping your toes into it if you were a fan of the Mass Effect multiplayer and want to see potential going forward. I hope a lot more games there. And it was really an experimental mode, which is why it wasn't monetized and why it was just thrown out there. Impressive.
Okay.
Impressive. Chucker number 1.
So, I mean, figuring out what my number 1 game was honestly really easy. It was the more difficult part was trying to figure out all the other ones. But easily the best game that I've done this year is Tacoma. And its story is absolutely phenomenal. I went into this game expecting one thing with the story and kind of I've heard good things about this game. And I went into it expecting an enjoyable small story mechanic based type of game, and I got that, but the story that I was expecting went completely different. And I enjoyed that in an unexpected manner. And the mechanic is extremely fun. If you've enjoyed the BDs in Cyberpunk, then the entire gameplay of Tacoma is that you enter a part of a spaceship and a 3-minute scenario plays out where you use the right trigger and left trigger to fast forward time and rewind time. and you follow the characters on the spaceship as they move about in that area and as the story plays out. And the world is designed so fucking well that it feels like it isn't our future, or it might be our future. It doesn't specifically kind of go on with some of that stuff, but it feels realistic in the sense that there isn't exposition. Characters aren't talking to each other in ways that wouldn't make sense, that you see a lot of characters talk to because there's an audience watching them. So when a person walks in as like 25 years old and they're like, "Oh, it's my brother, Steven." It's like, no one says that, but all these characters just have a very natural conversation with each other and are reacting not to the observer that is watching the story take place, which you are playing a character who lands on this that reacts to an emergency signal and lands on a space station, and you try to figure out what happened in the past few days. But the characters are alive in that area, and they are reacting to the situation in ways that you would expect. They're not reacting to the camera or the observer. They're reacting to the other people in the world. And there's other things that you can pick up in the world, like little magazines you can pick up and spin around and kind of observe. And you can read emails from the people. And the way that it builds the world was just phenomenal. It is easily the best game with this year.
Okay. I wasn't going to go on to you. That game came out in 2017.
Well, the
so
details
that's the best game that that is important for what we're doing. That is the best game you played this year. It is not a Game of the Year candidate. I was going to let you go on and on and on about that, but it's not the best game of the year because it came out a while ago.
Was phenomenal.
That doesn't interrupt you liking the game very much, but yeah, not a Game of the Year.
Definitely my top game of the year.
The favorite game you play this year can't be 2020 Game of the Year. It didn't come out in 2020. So your 2020 Game of the Year, I'm declaring a spell break. You have no choice.
Oof.
You don't. You have no choice because this game, your top game, did not come out in 2020. But it is still worth talking about, so I'll let you go on for it.
Oh, that game was so well done. I could just throw in a Call of the Sea because that came out in 2020. It's of similar vein of the story that it builds, the world that it builds. It's not on a space station. It is this wife that is trying to find her husband who went missing and discovering this world and all this kind of stuff. And it's kind of like that. I just give it more to Tacoma just because, that game, that was so good. But I can give it then to Call of the Sea, which I haven't finished. But
okay, well, I mean, I depends on how much you care about what I think.
It's like in Scooby-Doo, if they're like wearing the mask.
You never seem to do, so it doesn't matter. I have an addition to this. There are two games I didn't play that I think both might have overrid my Game of the Year. The first one is Hades, which looks like a game I really, really like. It came out on both PC and Switch. If it's going to come out in console, I usually wait to play it on my console of choice because I like doing that. So
yeah,
I decided to wait on it. But that technically came out in 2020, and that looks like a game that I would really, really enjoy. The other one, and this did not get any votes in our community for Game of the Year, probably because not a lot of people were able to play it, was Half-Life Alyx, which I am confident would have been my Game of the Year had I had the hard
cut out.
Half-Life Alyx, which would have been. Is it Alex?
Yes, because it's based off of the character Alex.
Okay, I got that wrong. Whatever. That would have been my Game of the Year, probably. I'm resetting
up my VR.
Whatever. Isn't it a very specific VR that you need?
No. You just need the VR capabilities of it. I think, I have a first generation HTC Vive. like it has all the wires and it is like a clunky little thing, but it still like runs the games properly. You just need the actual hardware on your computer to run it, because all the headset's doing is just kind of rendering it as well as being your placement in the world.
Yeah. Anyway, I will play that 100% at some point.
Super Hot is pretty fun in VR. Oh, and
Super
Gorn.
Hot's great. Yeah.
Gorn is published by Devolver Digital. Is a VR like arena fighter type of game.
Why did I call it Half-Life Alyx? I heard that multiple times from someone. I don't know why I thought it was Alyx. Anyway,
it's based.
I would have got
it. Well, it's based off of Alex Vance.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not a huge Half-Life guy, but I am. I do think that VR is going to start working when the hardware goes up, and I'm looking forward to. The only VR headset I have right now is the PlayStation one, and the controls on that are not good, but it is fun. At some point I will play this.
It's a mid-ground between full VR and it's sitting VR, and this is more interactive VR because, like, I won't have room for it.
Did you
my
play
apartment
it or not?
I haven't played it, but I've played other ones like it, like Arizona Sunshine, I think is what it's called, or other games.
From
like
my understanding, this was a significant step up from every other VR game.
Yeah, but I mean, even the games that I have played, where you can open up car doors and look around and all this kind of stuff, like that is pretty fun. And then seeing Half-Life Alyx in being literally Half-Life Alyx looking like the 2.0 version of that, and it just makes me really excited for it. I don't have room because my apartment is shaped like a capital letter E, so I don't have like a
Don't you just need standing
area.
space?
Oh, you would absolutely need standing
but you
space
need to be
for this game.
But you need to be able to move your arms around. That's where you might get in trouble.
Faithfully, like I'm a small dude.
Pets make VR troublesome, man.
Yeah, my cat and dog just kind of deal. My dog's 13 years old. He's not doing much. He just kind of sits and watches.
Well,
and such.
Still, you don't
and
want to step on
my
that
cat
boy.
he just sits and just does his thing. It's good.
All right, I'm going to make a quick run of the community votes. So there's quite a lot of games. I left it open-ended to let people pick as many as there were. There was no consensus game. We had a consensus anticipated game, but there were a whole bunch that are basically tied up there. So basically, if we were to run a poll like this, these would be pretty much tied. But I'll give them in order of votes, first place votes. Ghost of Tsushima was at the top. Doom Eternal.
Okay.
The Final Fantasy VII Remake, which surprised me. That was a couple people's favorite game of the year.
I've heard that is... Well, I mean, I've actually been asking my friend, because that is a game I've heard a lot of, especially when I was in college for video games, like people talking about Sephiroth and Cloud and all of them.
The remake's not the first game, yeah.
But, well, Final Fantasy, all the games are their own... They are their own thing. They have their own different characters, their own different world, their own...
They did do some things where they're like there's Final Fantasy like 13, 1, 2, and 3, I think, and stuff like that. But each individual number is completely different.
I don't know much of Final Fantasy, but I just know that like Final Fantasy VII is the first one that had Sephiroth and had all of those. But the reason why it is such a huge cult following, or just not cult following, but just has this huge following, is it is when it first went to 2D to 3D, which changed the market. It was the first time that the Final Fantasy game really picked up market-wise.
Yeah, it was the biggest
Western,
one for sure.
In areas, just because the combat was kind of deemed like boring for the earlier ones, where it is a lot more just kind of going through menus. But Final Fantasy VII being 3D and having actual like the animations, having them play out.
Yeah, you're talking about the older game. This is not what they were talking about. Yeah, it's from what I'd never played it. the new one, but I understand it's very different from the old one, which is why I'm surprised.
Yeah, it is also
it got votes.
the remake. The remake is only the first part of
which is
the
weird.
Final Fantasy VII game. Like
I don't want that to become a thing.
I don't think the remake has gotten to Sephiroth. I don't think it's gotten to that. But
anyway, yeah,
maybe
we shouldn't talk more about it because neither of us are really up on it.
Not really, but I have a friend that just absolutely loves it, and I'm trying to go off memory with that. I also know that the Sephiroth was just added to Smash Brothers, and people are losing their shit over that.
That's cool.
Well, Sephiroth is like the bad guy of Final Fantasy VII, and
yeah, but that was a PlayStation game, from what I understand.
Well, yeah, the story
that wasn't
behind him.
That wasn't on Nintendo. That's why I'm saying it's weird.
Well, Nintendo also added Steve and Banjo-Kazooie.
And I remember Solid
Steve
Snake
from Minecraft.
Okay, well,
yeah,
it's still...
and Cloud is already in
yeah, they stopped
Smash
carrying
Brothers.
him. It's no longer make... I still find it weird. I'll just put it that way. I'm going to go on with this list since you cut us off.
Have you
Ori
played the
Ori and the
Kingdom
Will
Hearts
of the Wisps. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is on the list.
Beautiful game.
That seems like a game I would like.
It is a very beautiful looking game. It is difficult, but it is a beautiful, beautiful game.
Multiple votes for Genshin Impact, which really surprised me. I don't know why it surprised me, but a lot of people love that game.
Isn't
completely
that the
free to
mobile
play.
Game?
It's mobile, but it's on the It's on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One.
Oh.
It's completely free. Weird. I mean, like I don't give games enough of a chance a lot of times, and I came in there, I'm like, I don't enjoy the immediate controls, and I stop. Yeah, but I have other games I want to play, so I make sure I move on to them. But I do know people who like that game quite a bit. Other games, Yakuza Like a Dragon, Neo
the Yakuza
2.
series is one that is very much enjoyed by the community. Like,
isn't Like a Dragon is completely different gameplay though, right?
I don't know. I do know that the Yakuza has a fan base that every time a new one comes out, they get excited and happy. That's because I'm happy for them.
It's because those games are good. Yeah, they become
People
really,
get excited for good games.
They become really, really, really wacky. I don't remember the earlier ones being wacky, but they become weird, which is fine.
Well, it's more, I guess, it changes itself with the audience, which that's kind of what happened with Saints Row. That's the reason why Saints Row is so goofy. Saints Row 1 and 2, although were silly in some aspects, were competing with GTA for the most part, and they decided
had to go over
the satire route with Saints Row the Third.
All right, other votes. Neo 2. Didn't play Neo 2, like the first one kind of a bit. Hades, and then Persona 5 Royal.
Yeah, Persona is also another
all highly voted mobile ones.
The community I've heard.
Like I said, Hades I think might have been on mine if I was able to play it. Looking forward to playing that one. Other games that receive first place votes: Cloudpunk, which is on my list.
What is that? I've heard
it's
that talked about a few times.
Cyberpunk taxi type game,
but with clouds.
No, I mean your taxi is in the air.
Okay.
But it's a story-based thing, and that's I want to play it before I talk about it too much more. I think I'll end up playing that before I play Cyberpunk, which was weird to me, but whatever. Crusader Kings 3, which seems like my kind of game and also doesn't seem like my kind of game at all. And then Wasteland 3. Those games are your games of the year. There is no consensus, like I said at this point. Other votes.
Think of
there were multiple mentions for Cyberpunk 2077 and love. If you love that game, great. I always maintain that even if people consider a game bad, if you love it, don't listen to anybody else. From all standpoints, you enjoyed that game still, right? Even though Cyberpunk 2077, even though it wasn't quite functional.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still enjoying it. I'm now actually getting through the story. I've just been doing side quests. Like I've just bought all of the vehicles.
My friend was doing that, just doing the side quests.
Yeah, like I've bought all the vehicles. I've gotten my street cred to 50. My level is like 25 or 26 and everything like that. And I'm walking into the first mission. And I'm like, hello. I am very overpowered.
That's fine. Okay.
Yeah, well.
Oh, games that design that to play it like you want to play, that's great.
Well, it's also because I want to get all the achievements in it, and I'm waiting to see for the community to come out and say where all the missable stuff are. So I
see. So you don't have to play it twice.
If I don't do any of the main missions, because like I've been doing the collectible ones and all of that stuff because those are the collectibles. But the mission ones, there are some ones that you have to make certain choices, and I was just waiting for the community to kind of go like.
That's unfortunate. I never look at trophies until my second playthrough because I don't want them to dictate what I do. But if you don't play a game like that, that's perfectly fine. As long as if you are playing a game and enjoying the way you're playing it, you're doing it correctly. No matter what someone else thinks. Also, multiple mentions for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Which as it goes on, I kind of want to check that out more and more.
What about Animal Crossing? That came out this year.
No mentions for Animal Crossing in our group. None.
That was a big game this year. What was that? March or February?
I think it was March.
Or something?
It was right when things started shutting down.
Yeah, it was. It was so perfect time. Just perfect time.
It was one of the best-selling games. Might be the best-selling game of the year. Actually, I don't know how Cyberpunk did in comparison. But, yeah, I mean, basically sold out Switches, which happens more often because Nintendo was... Actually, at every point that game, everybody was sold out of, like, PlayStation 4s and Xbox Ones. Anyway, no mentions for that.
There's a game that was just a disappointment. Was Predator Hunting Grounds.
What made your brain connect to that? It has nothing to do with Animal Crossing. That's just a weird jump, man.
Well, I mean, the Predator is...
We're talking about good games, Tucker.
Alien. I guess you can say man
the Predator is an alien?
An animal.
Oh, come on, Tucker. There was no relation. Your brain is messed up. It's like someone pulled it out of your head and then rearranged it wrong and put it back in.
Yeah, pretty much. But Predator Hunting Ground is an asymmetric game where like one person plays as the Predator and these other people are playing as these military soldiers and so on. And I was excited for it, and I enjoy those isometric or asymmetrical games like Evolve. I enjoyed, and Dead by Daylight is my drug. But with Predators, it just didn't hold up. It felt like an older game than.
Do you want to go to games that people actually liked? Because we're still in the middle of that. When you cut me off with your random crap. Although these last couple ones, there's a couple I actually don't agree with. Mortal Shell, which I believe is a Soulsborne game, I didn't play it.
Did anyone mention Last of Us?
Nobody mentioned Last of Us. Isn't that interesting? This is a small sample, but still. Very surprising.
Which
I wonder
is
why
weird,
that is.
Because Last of Us 1 is
that's
probably
a lot of
everyone's favorite PlayStation 3 game.
I don't believe that is true. I mean,
what other game do you think stands out more on the PlayStation 3 than The Last of Us?
Oh,
maybe Uncharted. But
almost all. I did not like that game, but we're going to get into that eventually. Why?
That's the same company.
Problems with the games like that. I'm aware of that. I'm fully aware of that.
Yeah.
It's just it's the setting that gets to me.
It's just it's just phenomenal that The Last of Us, the first one, is a game that was so loved by everyone, but Last of Us 2 just dropped after the game came out, and people were kind of with it.
There's something, and I won't get in. There's something very specific in The Last of Us 2 that there's a reason for that. There's a connection.
Well, anyway, yeah, but it's just so interesting of that.
That would be an interesting topic at some point, because it is related to games that we cover. Anyway, at some point I will get into that. It'll make a good show. There was a mention for Godfall, which I could not believe. I actually enjoyed Godfall. It was not a finished game. It was more functional than Cyberpunk, but it was less content, and there were some weird bugs that just didn't. I could not get the platinum because I couldn't get it to finish. Like there was this tower that you had to go up, and it would just stop. The combat though was enjoyable. And if you like melee combat games, I bet there are a lot of people who might like that, but it was not finished, and it was kind of more of a half a game. The other one was a game I hadn't heard of that released in Japan in 2019, but was released in North America worldwide in 20, was 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, which I know nothing about.
I think I've heard of that.
Anyway, those are the mentions. No consensus.
So no
on
one
here is the
mentioned
important.
Marvel Avengers.
Well, was there anyone who really liked that game?
Man, I was so excited for that game.
So there's multiple games.
That game hurts me more than Cyberpunk.
What were you expecting it to be good?
Well,
that seemed to me like a perfect cash grab, fitting a genre that didn't fit the material type of game. There were all kinds of things wrong with it as I looked at it, and so I was expecting the game not to be good. I wasn't interested.
I was just excited because it was Marvel, and that just excited me, and so I kind of steered away from looking at gameplay and everything because I was just excited with the Marvel aspect. And if I looked at the gameplay, I would have recognized, like, oh yeah, no way, there's a lot of grind that I don't like.
I think people like the campaign story stuff, but again,
the campaign story is
well, that's
very Deus Ex of, oh, what a coincidence that this happened to have happened, and that is comic books in the nutshell, but it definitely was more blatant. I don't know. It just wasn't. What was good was the Destroy All Humans remake, but that's a remaster, so I don't know how much that counts.
I don't have a strong opinion on that one way or the other. I believe a remaster shouldn't. I believe a remaster, as far as what we're doing, shouldn't count, but a remake does. But I don't feel strongly about that. So,
yeah, from my understanding, the Destroy All Humans remake is nothing like the Final Fantasy VII remake, because the Final Fantasy VII remake
is it a remake or a remaster? Because a remake is where they do the entire game.
Remake, but it is kind of the same kind of game, but prettied up. But I never played the original Destroy All Humans, but I have heard people enjoy it, so I did kind of poke around with the remake and was very enjoyable. And it is one of those games that kind of shows you how different games are now than then, because the humor it's kind of spooky. There's some political humor in it, and it's scary how much some of that matches what's going on today, but that was satire then, and it's kind of wild.
Okay. Yeah, some of that stuff is less funny as we go on, but that's whatever. That's more of a...
But it was enjoyable. But the Final Fantasy VII remake is something we didn't mention, though. Part of the reason why everyone probably is so in love with it is it changed the gameplay from turn-based kind of choice to, like, real time.
It's a weird... Yeah, I'm not a fan of the way those new Final Fantasy games work with that, but people are... I don't believe everyone liking that is the right word, but people do really like it. It's never been
my cup of tea, but it
there are
really
some people
does
who are
tickle
really
the fancy of those fans. They
there
love
are some
it,
people
and
who
that's
are
awesome.
No, there are some people who are really upset with that game. I know that for a fact.
Sure.
I will not get into it because I'm not knowledgeable enough to back either side up. By the way, this is great. Some guy, quote, some guy wrote into accidentallycasual@gmail.com to let me know that, yes, people still do use email.
Oh, that's nice of him.
Take that, Tucker. We actually did get emails this week.
Did you, like, reply back? Is he going to be your pen pal now?
Just because, no, there were, like, multiple, there were enough emails that it wasn't, like...
Okay.
I plugged it enough. He also says you should watch the Perfect Blue anime as far as horror goes. That was his suggestion.
Blue. Okay.
It's an older one. Can't back up enough on the anime stuff. Okay, anything else you want to chat about?
So, WandaVision is coming out relatively soon, and I want there to be a heads up that I am really just... I will very much probably want to talk about those episodes. Do you watch the MCU stuff?
I will watch it. I will wait until it's all out. So I hope you wait until it's all out so I can...
You're even doing that with the TV show?
I hate watch... I do not like watching TV shows one at a time. Netflix has ruined it for me.
No,
So
that is fair. I do the same thing. Like I just did that with Mandalorian. I didn't watch season 2 until it was all out.
As soon as WandaVision's final episode of the season comes out, I will watch it all.
It's just like the MCU is so...
Wanda Maximoff is nuts. In the comics, she's crazy powerful. It'll be interesting to see what they do with that.
They said that this is going to be... Because they've never called her Scarlet Witch. She's never been referred to that in the MCU. She's always been Wanda. And they said that this will be where she is Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, I mean, they've hinted to how powerful it is. For instance, they came straight out and said that if Thanos at the final one didn't use a cheap shot, that she could take him one-on-one. But when she gets going, she is universe-breaking character.
Yeah, I mean, there's the whole House of M, where she just gets
when we
rid
have
of,
more
like,
time, it'd be
not all the mutants, but like 90-something% of them.
I think it was more than that. If you guys are cool with us branching into like the MCU and that kind of stuff, let us know in the comments section. Let us know in the comments section if that's something that we want to break into, because Tucker and I are both interested in doing that. It's not video game related, but it is nerd related. So that's kind of where we'd like to go with the podcast, I think.
Yeah, just general nerd culture things, because they do bleed into each other.
All right, so we would want to know your opinion on zombies, and I would add that into end of the world scenarios related to zombies. Do you like them? Do you not like them? Why? Why not? Write into accidentallcasual@gmail.com or hit up the comment section. We're going to chat about that as a primary topic next week.
Is there a difference to you?
Not necessarily. Depends on different things. I think as far as writing in here, you have a broad license on what a zombie is. It's not just an undead thing. That. Yeah, it's like something infected with a disease or a fungus or a worm or whatever. Controlled humans, that kind of stuff.
All of that. You consider all of that just zombie.
I will in this topic, but not really. I don't want to get into semantics of that, but that'll be our topic next week, and we will get into why Tucker loves it, and I really, really don't love it. And that'll be what the show is. Part of the show is next week. So accidentallcasual@gmail.com, write it in. Or the comments section, which I will be going through. Or you can try us on Twitter. I'm at MiniusGC. Tucker is at Appy Tucker. Is it time for the Extreme Aspect Character of the Week?
There was one, and I'm trying to find his name.
Are you interrupting the Obscure Mass Effect Character of the Week, Tucker? Are you interrupting that segment? How dare you?
Well, because I had the name of a person that I don't think you would have known.
Okay, that's fine. Email it to me, because it takes actually quite a bit of work to get this in there, and I already did my work for the week. So email it. You'll get to choose next week. That way I can find them. And there's a good chance I know the character, but we'll find out. This week's, and I was going to save this character for a while because I love her, but it was written into by Jacob, also known as Obscenity Overload. I think he had like 5 or 6 names, and I'm like, that's the same guy? Either way, he nominated Gianna Parasini, who was the first video game character to offer me a beer. I'm going to drop that in right now.
You, Shepard! I demand you place this bitch under arrest!
You have the right to remain silent. I wish to God you'd exercise it. See you around the galaxy, Commander. I owe you a beer.
So she's a bartender.
And no, she's a spy. She's a corporate espionage spy. And I fell in love with her right then when she offered me. I've never had a video game character do that. And I was like, oh my God.
She's not
a romance auction. She's in 2 games, very brief in both of them. She actually, and this is more of an interesting topic, she actually might be in the next game if they go with the dark energy theory, because she's one of 2 characters to talk about dark energy, which she does. She ends her conversation with you in the second game. She's like, I'm hearing a lot of buzz about dark energy. I got to go check it out. And then she leaves. Yeah, and Tally is the other one. The Tally thing's much bigger because that's on the Hailstrom, which is all about dark energy. But if they end up going with dark energy as a plotline in the new game, she might be involved. But for now, she's an obscure character.
They would bring a lot of people back. Probably not just...
depending on the timeline. Well, the timeline matters.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to go out, and I'm going to ignore you for the rest of the podcast so I can exit it. Because you're starting to get off on... You're starting to get off on me trying to end the podcast and you not wanting to.
I'm trying to find that person's name.
That's fine. You got time, and we'll go with Tucker's next one on the next... We're starting to get people writing in accidentally casual com. I have a backlog of characters, which is awesome, which is exactly what I want. I want the segment to be awesome. So you guys are great. Thank you for writing that in. You're allowed to nominate a character for the obscure Mass Effect character of the week. In fact, I encourage you to do it highly, because otherwise you're going to get my weird ones. But we've got multiple ones in the backlog. Accidentallycasual@gmail.com. The only 2 limitations, and really one of them, it's so big it's not really a limitation. They need to be as or more obscure than Conrad Werner. And Conrad Werner is pretty prominent, so that's not an issue. Also, I need to be able to get an audio clip of it. And if I can't do that, they won't make the cut. I'll give them a mention. There's one in there that
I don't think my guy... I don't think we ever
if they don't
hear
say
him
anything,
in anything.
That's a problem. Then they wouldn't qualify. Anyway.
It was Victor Manswell.
What does he do?
Do you know who that is?
I don't always know by the name. What does he do in the game?
Victor Manswell, he was the billionaire person who began funding the spaceflight stuff and led the Manswell expedition that successfully launches from Earth en route to Alpha Centauri system with 300 colonists. He's essentially the Elon Musk of the Mass Effect universe.
That wasn't in the books. They added that later then, huh?
Well, he's in 2070 CE.
Yeah.
Is that?
So it's
he's
somewhere
essentially the Elon
in
Musk.
the codex. Yeah, so that character would not qualify, but is worth mentioning, so I'm leaving this in the show.
Aha. But it makes me excited because that was in 2070 in Mass Effect, and Elon Musk is kind of doing it a little bit earlier.
Where that matches up potentially, where we might actually be in space in 2070 if we don't collapse.
Mass Effect uses our history as their baseline, right?
Because it takes place
to the point,
up to a specific point. Yeah.
And another thing I was wondering, so we have all this views for aliens, and not just Mass Effect, but we have Star Wars and other things like that for aliens.
Okay.
Has there ever been any conversation in Mass Effect about the aliens' perspective on our views of aliens before we met them?
Before we met them, no.
Like Star Wars, is there any?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Or anything of a Turian going, man, Star Wars is weird that y'all thought of this.
No, they don't do that. And now that is what you're saying. I don't believe there's any mention of other things, and that might be a copyright thing.
And
I don't know.
While yeah, that could make sense, it being a copyright thing, that got me thinking that the reason we have these types of views of aliens on Star Wars, Mass Effect, and so on like that is because we haven't met aliens. Once we meet them, then it's no longer this kind of this type of fantasy, type of sci-fi. It's then real life. That there are races in Mass Effect that haven't gotten to space travel yet. They haven't gotten to that.
Correct.
So that's
confirmed,
on their
100%.
own world have their
Potentially
own entertainment of what they think aliens look like. So they could
the
have
fuck did this come out of your head, man?
their own version of Star Wars, but with their views of, and it would be a very, very different. It's not like Star Wars with them as characters, because it would be so, not to make it as a joke, but it would be so alien to us because their entertainment would be different. And I was just always like wondering that would be kind of cool to see what other alien races that haven't actually met aliens.
I'm going to counter that very seriously to make it a discussion. Mass Effect does this too. The Mass Effect aliens are very, very human in the way they act. And it is my belief that actual aliens are going to be way more bizarre. And the reason that is because it's a piece of entertainment. So you need to be able to relate to them on a human scale. And that's kind of what set Mass Effect apart from other sci-fi things, is you look at it and they have these alien characters and these alien species that you really, really care about. But that's because they're very human in the way they act and they react. Where that would be very different. So it wouldn't stand out
Star
as much
Wars,
as you think.
Star Wars is very alien, where everything is alien in a sense.
Potentially, yeah. The more of a Star Trek is one where they actually try to get some weird alien, depending on the show.
It's just like, I would love, because that's going to be something. Like,
right.
When we do, because there are aliens. There's aliens.
So anyway, actually, aliens would be a good topic for a show coming up, because I like talking aliens.
Yeah,
aliens
that's
is
nerd
weird.
culture.
That is absolutely, and it fits in with what we're doing. Another thing, so Marvel Universe, aliens, anything generally sci-fi topic-wise or astronomy topic-wise, I'm going to drop into the show without asking anybody, so aliens qualifies. Anyway, you can catch out Accidentally Casual because it comes out weekly. It's usually on Thursday or Friday, but we try to make it, if something happens, we'll jump in there. But it does always launch at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, 5 at night in the UK, and 4 a.m. on the East Coast of Australia the next day. So check your feed for our show. We'll also keep on, now I'm getting a couple requests for an audio version. I'll try to get that going. I got too many things I'm trying to juggle at the moment, but that one will come. I promise, it will come. So, but this has been episode 20 of the Accidentally Casual Gaming Podcast. If you watch on Twitter, I'm at MiniusGC. Tucker is at Happy Tucker. And we will be back next year. Next year we'll be back. What?
Yep.
Catch you then.
Bye.
What's up next for you?
Research. We've had some hacking attacks lately, and I want to make sure they're external. A lot of people are suddenly interested in dark energy. My bosses want to know if it's something to worry about. That'll hold me over until I have to go back undercover anyway.